Allison, no cap with GCAP. My name is Jasmine. I'm the videography intern. And today we're welcoming our amazing global studies professor / director, Dr. Julian Allison. Hey. Okay, so we're going to start the questions now. Okay, our first question for you is, what do you think is the best route that can be taken for transitions to renewable energy sources?
Boy, you just jump right in there. Well, I think they've done a lot in terms of making more energy sources available and they've become cheaper over time. So right now, I know I just taught an energy class last year, and I asked the students a question similar to this. They're like, electric is, renewables are so much more expensive. I go, no, they're not. I think you need to relook at the data. That's not the case. So they've done a lot of the things that you need to do. If you're looking at it straight as an affordability issue, it's still like for cars, like in California, it's still more affordable to have a hybrid than an EV, right? For the average person. In a home, it is more affordable to keep whatever kind of appliances and energy you have than it is to upgrade. But if you are buying new, of course, you're going to ask for an induction oven, or you're going to go with electric sources, kind of thing. So we're not quite there yet in affordability for folks, but the availability and the price has been really good. And then that has a lot to do with the policies. We're really blessed in California that we're a leader, in this space, all the way from air quality control, which of course a lot of that had to do with poor emissions. Renewables, you reduce the emissions. So there's a whole long air quality history before you start looking at the energy. And then right now, of course, we're somewhat challenged by the current administration in terms of, a lot of our laws are more progressive than the rest of the country, and we've been able to operate on waivers. And one of the first things this administration did was remove the waivers that allow us to be more stringent than the rest of the United States. And then they're, of course, doing everything they can to weaken the laws.
If you could tell us more about your research that has been conducted surrounding the sustainability of Southern California's warehousing industry, or any other of your research that has left a lasting impact on you or your career.
Wow, that's another big one. So my very first research when I came to UCR was immediately on the energy sector in particular. It was a time when social scientists were sort of new to studying the environment, so I worked with a lot of engineers, and it was on the relative costs and benefits of traditional fossil fuels versus different kinds of renewables. So from the very beginning, I was sort of in this space of where does our energy come from and what kinds of fuels are we using in our cars, from the get-go. So it's always been there. As I've moved through time, it's added more elements, with the cost to the built environment of having, all the warehouses, and then the logistics here, which increases the number of vehicles on the freeways, and then the kinds of fuels, all the way to, kind of how the people are treated in the warehousing industry. So, as you guys know, kind of looking at sustainability, it's about, economics and about ecology. As well as kind of our political or our policy pieces of it. So it's not odd, right, to be studying, kind of labor issues within the context of sustainability. So the most recent work that I did with Professor Ellen Reese in sociology is probably our most public-facing piece. We've done a number of working papers, but I think they have a public face, but the public faces are usually with policymakers. But we did write a book on the warehousing. Unsustainable. Right. So you can see how I feel about that. But we deliberately focused on narratives of people working in the industry, and deliberately, designed the chapter, from the organization of it, the chapter names, to the language that we used to kind of engage not just entry-level college students, but also the general public, so that it's not a real theoretical piece. It has a lot of the stories in it, so you can kind of hear from the actual people that are out there. So I'm hoping that has a lasting impact. I have this back burner issue. So I've worked on lots of things, but this back burner issue, my other thing I'm working on besides the warehousing right now, is on stakeholder engagement, or to some extent self-governance of open space. Mm-hmm. So looking at how recreational users of our public lands can, in a sense, fill in for lacking policy, or kind of secure access and be able to do the things they want by being good citizens in a way, being good stewards of the environment. So I've been looking at off-highway vehicles, or kind of off-roading, trail running, and climbing in particular, and looking at the way that access is being taken away from these groups because of the damage that they do. But if they step up and change the way that they use the land, then they will have more access. So that's kind of what I'm doing now, and I'm starting to look internationally. So
that's perfect.
Yeah.
What would you say are like the specific steps that those kinds of people would need to take to to limit the damage that they're creating on the land?
So every one of the groups, I think, has embraced some level of leave no trace sort of training, and have developed ways in which it applies directly to their community. Because rock climbers go to places like the leave no trace was really written for your usual hiker, backpacker kind of person. But they're going to be in places sometimes exploring or developing new areas. They're going to be they're going to be up high in habitats where birds are. The problems are slightly different. So I think learning whatever those policies, whatever those guidelines, those norms are, and putting them in place, I think is really useful. Knowing something about the environments where you go into. I know doing some interviews with land managers, they were saying, climbers, all they care about is the parking lot and the rocks. Like, they don't really care about anything in between. They don't care about, like, what they're trampling. They're not mindful of staying on trails. So learning that, you need to pay attention to those kinds of things. With off-roaders, for instance, they just look at us like, look, this desert, it's the BLM. We can just go wherever I want. Of course, because of the vehicles, sometimes they are limited. They have to stay on the dirt road. So they're, of course, just because they're a Jeep driver, or they're a motorcycle, or even a mountain bike, they're not going to be able to do some of the damage like a big side-by-side or kind of a rock crawler is going to be. But they are responsible for a lot of just the debris, the trash that blows out of their vehicles, and that kind of stuff. To be mindful that you're not the only one using this area, and that people like me don't want to go and volunteer and pick it all up.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's great.
So.
I remember reading that, correct me if I'm wrong, that you love to be outdoors and you love rock climbing yourself. Is that correct? So how did you get into that?
So I tell people I started climbing a very long time ago at Girl Scout camp. And that's where I learned to climb, and I absolutely loved it. But back in those days, if you didn't know somebody who climbed and had equipment, you couldn't do it. It wasn't like now where you can go to REI and pick up stuff, and there's climbing gyms and people to mentor you. Like, if you didn't know. So I only climbed at Girl Scout camp. Like, each year, I went away to camp each summer, that's when I climbed. And then I had a brother who started climbing. My brother's 7 years younger than I am, so much later, and he was an adult. So I got to climb a little bit then, but it was really my son when he was, kind of a preteen, like 12. And the first gym opened here. So the one that's now Hangar right by campus used to be Threshold. So we joined as soon as it opened. And he loved it. Like, he loved it. He lived at the gym. And so that's when I kind of got back into it. And then I really wanted to climb outside. I wasn't like a gym person. He was a phenomenal climber. So we climbed outside and stuff. And so.
Go more into that and talk about your inspiration going into the book, and if you had any challenges throughout the process.
So I think by the time we wrote that, Ellen and I had worked on projects both together and apart, having to do with warehousing. So it's like, so lots of aspects. There's the road pieces, and there's the energy, and then there's the air quality things, and there's the labor issues, and there's activism, mobilization. There's Amazon in particular. we'd been, and we just thought we had a lot of experience that we'd never sat down and thought about how it all came together and what the narrative was. So that was one piece of it. Another piece of it was that we're community engaged scholars, and so we didn't want it to be coming from like on high, right? I mean, so it would be our lens because we were going to kind of set it up in terms of like how we saw it, but we wanted the voice to be from the people that actually had to live that experience. And so we did what we called like a community kind of ethnographic approach. So as opposed to being like people watching something, we wanted to bring those voices forward. So like a community-based case study of this particular logistics hub, because it's a super important one, super big one. It's easily, like, you have to go look at the numbers in a given year, but it's one of, if not the largest in the United States, and definitely among the largest and most significant in the world. So if you're going to do a case study, it's sometimes really good to do one on somewhere that's been in it from the very beginning. Yeah. And then we wanted to set the warehousing like in the broader context of this area and how it's been a series of exploited areas. So, you had the indigenous people that were here, and then you had, a lot of Chinese came here and then they were exploited, right? You had like you had these series of industries. You had the citrus industry, you had the grape industry, you had, just these layers. You had farming and pigs, and you had, just the series of things that went on. And every time you could trace, it's always whoever's at the bottom of the social ladder is the group that gets exploited. So rather than see this as, oh my God, warehouses are so bad and they're so bad for people, well, really they're just another version of an old story.
What was one thing you took out of that experience?
Of the writing? Mm-hmm. Well, Ellen and I learned to work really well together. We really learned what we're good at in terms of writing. So it was really good, as a professional exercise. Yeah. We wrote it really fast. So it's the second. I did 2 books sort of back to back that were really fast like that. So that was a learning experience in and of itself. Probably another thing that I learned is that, this area is recognized for not having a lot of, kind of social organizations, nonprofit organizations, and not a lot of, resources available for people. And so that may be true numerically, but we really do have phenomenal nonprofit organizations that are really able to tap into a broad swath of kind of different sects of the community, right? And they overlap, right? So, your faith-based community, organizations overlap with your labor organizations, overlap with ones that are really focused on different kinds of education, that overlap with ones that are interested in particular, rebuilding a park area, or whatever it is. You see all these kind of intersections of these different people. So Ellen and I and a former graduate student in sociology had written an article that looked at intersectionality, not so much as our innate kind of demographic social identities, but the kinds of work that we do and the other kinds of things that we do. So you could really see that intersectionality playing out in that sense, that it's not just about race, class, gender, those kinds of, it's also about what kind of work do you do, where do you live, and a lot of those things that are other elements of intersectionality and identity that don't always get elevated theoretically.
That's true. You guys have worked together for a long period of time, and you said that you guys have figured out ways that you work together. What guys have worked together the best?
I think Ellen's a really, really fast and prolific, writer and producer. She's very, very quick. And I'm super, detail-oriented and lifting up all the rocks. And so I'm a lot, I guess it's like that forest trees kind of thing. I'm very much like the forest. How does this all come together, and what do we need here, and edit? So we were both doing both. We both wrote and we both edited. But I think I found my strengths more on the editing and the big picture, and we need a narrative here, like this. And Ellen's much more like, if we needed 50 pages by tomorrow, she's got it, right? Like she's able to just sit down, hone in, and produce something just to bring that wealth of knowledge that she has into the place and do it. Where I'm like, so I can see that we just work differently. Yeah. So I pass that on to students all the time. I go, you have to kind of figure out how you work. Yes. How you work best. And I work best in chunking things into very small pieces.
Like the ways that you live sustainably throughout your life. Can you give tips?
So I often give tips. I'm not perfect, right? Nobody's perfect, right? I have a 1990 van, right? It doesn't get driven very often. At one point I had a Suburban, like just as an example. I mean, we're all these bundles of contradictions. But the things that I do is that, I have 4 children, and we shared a lot of resources, and they learned from the time, that they were little, to do things, like run full loads. And, now we have solar panels, so you want to do all your, your electricity demanding things during the day while the solar's there. And so that's now what we do. But when they were little, it was, we did a lot of those things at night, and to turn off lights. And we didn't have a lot of things, like we only have one television. We've never had more than one television. No television in the bathroom, no television in the garage, no television in the family room, kitchen. No, we have one television that we always shared.
That's good.
Kind of stuff. They didn't have their own computers or cell phones till they bought them. Like
that's a good
so that we just weren't using resources. They used buses. I didn't buy them cars. Energy use, like teaching them about the car kind of thing, and that you should ride your bike to places that you can ride your bike to. You should take a bus, and that's available to you. Only the one television. That's a huge drain. People don't realize we don't have a pool. We have a community pool. It never entered my mind to have a pool. Like, it's a lot of things like that people begin to take for granted they have to have, and my kids are always going, you don't need to have that.
That's true. Question that we have for you today is if you have anything more to express about any new projects that you have, or anything else that you're undergoing, anything that you'd like to say to the
well, consider this as like sort of looking at students. I'm also the faculty director for sustainability on campus, and so last year we just went through a big reporting on everything. So it's in sustainability engagement, all of our operations, low carbon, zero waste, the whole thing, and then education. And as part of that, we did our first survey. I don't know if you guys got to take part in the sustainability assessment. I was like, really pleased to see that students are learning something here. Yeah. So like freshmen scored worse than seniors, that kind of thing. So that was all good. But this year, the faculty want to figure out a way to make it more transparent how students can come if they're interested in sustainability and learn more about it as they move through it. So we've done some things, like now when you enroll in your classes, there's a drop down for GEs and that kind of thing. There's a drop down for sustainability, so you can actually sort the courses that are available for sustainability and pick ones that are for sustainability. So that's one way that you can do right now. We're looking at doing some kind of certificate or minor that would be really easy for students to accomplish while they're here. And so we don't know if that'll be a traditional minor, but minors are really hard at UCR, right? We're going to come up with some kind of certificate where you're doing your major, but you could select courses like by using that drop-down method or having them highlighted in the catalog, so that just by getting your major, you could select courses that would lead you to, a certificate in sustainability. We've also looked at having a more practical kind of program that runs through the extension, because they're really good at that sort of thing. That students normally, if you take any courses through the extension, you have to pay for them. It's not like counted as part of your tuition, but possibly, like for sustainability, like you could do this program, and you could take courses there, and earn some kind of certificate. So we're playing with various things, so that we can begin to really see how students, progress. And again, sustainability is, it's energy and the way you live your life and the way the political system works. And we want to graduate students that are not just living, more sustainably, but they're choosing roles in society that are, contributing to sustainability, and that they're voting and participating in public life in a way that increases sustainability for everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Yes,
and
of course.
Meeting you.
You too.
Yes, and be sure that you check out your book, Alan Reese, called Unsustainable, and be sure to save energy, guys. We love being sustainable around here. So thank you guys for watching this episode of No Cap with GCAP with our lovely professor and director, Dr. Julianne Allison. Be sure to stay tuned for the next episode of No Cap with GCAP. See you guys.